Good morning, Facebook, my champions. How are you today? I'm Coach Tina, and we are about to start day 2 of our From Procrastination to Desired Destination Masterclass. And why do I have my hands up above my head? Because if you watched day 1, we talked about being in a beautiful state. And one of the ways Tony Robbins tells us to get in state is to get in motion, to celebrate. And I celebrate that I'm here with you today, that I'm excited that we are bringing in information that I believe is going to be so beneficial. If you have any problems with delays in getting things done, we're going to call that procrastination, even though high achievers like to call it just being stressed out, being overwhelmed, being busy. But the reality is, if we're not getting the things done that we know we're meant to do, we are setting ourselves up for not reaching those goals. And the goals, they are so very, very important. So if you haven't yet, go and grab your pen and paper, and so that you can be taking your notes so that we will get the most out of our 3-day masterclass from procrastination to desired destination. Yesterday was day 1. We've got day 2 today. Friday, tomorrow is day 3. And we are going to be hitting this and attacking it in such a way that you will feel super motivated and able to move from where you are today to where you want to go tomorrow and beyond, right? So as I wait for a few more people to come on, I'm checking my messages here to see if there's any issues. And from what I can see, we're all good. So yay. And let's get started. I'm going to bring up the PowerPoint. And you are here today because something in you, I don't believe there are any accidents. So you are here because you need the material. And the material that we are presenting today is all about how to get from where you are now to your desired destination. So the destination we went over yesterday. So if you haven't seen day 1 yet, I would jump on over to day 1 after this and rewatch it, because you really want to lock in on that pinnacle way ahead in the distance that you are going to have like a beacon calling you to the goal that you want to do. That is your desired destination. It draws you to it versus you having this battle to get there, right? When it's something that means so much to you, you will head towards it without avail. And I have Vanessa joining us now. Good morning, Vanessa. So happy you're here. And also a viewer online. Don't forget to drop in the comments when you come in. Perfect. I got the thumbs up. I love it. I'm so happy to have everybody here today as we go into day 2. I'm going to remind you today's about the reality of where you are and why it's important. And then tomorrow we're going to cover the secret to not waiting until tomorrow, right? Perfect. So we are going to keep moving along, looking at the objectives. I told you guys yesterday, it's a masterclass. So we have reasons why we're getting together each day. And yesterday, through the miracles of what we were working on, we were able to define our vision. So I've kind of grayed that out a little bit. And now we're moving towards objectives 2 and 3, which is a realistic assessment of where we are and discovering our way to get there, right? We're going to plug our coordinates into the GPS, where we want to go and where we are currently, our location, so that we can get that path to where we want to go. All right. And then Friday we'll cover the other objectives. So today our topic is on reality. And right? Like, who likes reality? The funny thing about reality is each person has their own perception of what is reality. And when we look at it that way, it's kind of rough. Like, we can see things a certain way, but other people see things a different way. And so is it my reality that matters or someone else's reality that rules, right? And it made me think of, my dad has a saying that when you find somebody, it's really to love forever, right? It's a set of flaws that you can live with. And, everybody has issues. And so those are flaws in a sense. They're different from what you have, but you decide, well, I can live with this set of flaws. And kind of reality is a set of rules you can live with. So what you determine is real to you is really where you are in the belief system of this is right or this is wrong or this is true or it's not true. And that's why Tony works with us so much. Tony Robbins I follow him closely. He always talks about limiting beliefs. And limiting beliefs are just things we've stacked on ourselves that we believe to be true, but that if we examine them very closely, we might find that it's not really a true statement, but it's just how we choose to accept the experience. And it's what keeps us from moving ahead. I hope that makes sense. So we don't want to be bothered by our limiting beliefs. We want to rise above them. But our beliefs are a set of rules. And I put the light post there because in the United States, at least, we have a traffic system that's pretty widely adhered to. When the light is green, we know that the traffic in our direction is going to move forward. When we see the yellow light, it's a caution. We should come to a stop. And then when we see the red, we know that we're supposed to stop. And those rules, when applied correctly, will keep us from colliding with others, right? So that's what we've been trained. That's the way we operate. If someone runs through a red light, we get upset because they broke the rules. And what's interesting is my son, my baby, is experiencing his first adventure in Vietnam. So he and his new bride went to her home country, and they've only been there a few days. And he called yesterday, and he was talking about all the different things he's seen and how different it is. And one of the things he said is, "Mom, it's crowded here. There's people on scooters and everything." He said, "But when we're in the streets, what's amazing is they don't have traffic lights." He said, "Everybody just kind of pays attention. And like when you go to make a turn into traffic, they watch and they make sure that they're not going to run into a car, and then they just do it." And he said, "It's so fascinating because everybody's following the rules that aren't our rules, right? And there's no accidents. There's no stress. Everybody's just moving." Well, our reality is that's kind of weird, and that would be hard and awkward, just like driving on the other side of the road. But yet, people that are brought up that way, people that's their culture, they have a totally different perspective on things. So be really cautious about reality. We're going to talk about reality today, but also understand that your reality and my reality and the other viewers on here may all see things a little bit different. Their reality is different than our reality. Yes, good morning, Diane. So happy to have you here. Good morning, Sarah. So happy that you guys are here. Yes, and Vanessa is saying, "I realize a lot of my beliefs don't belong to me. They were brought on by people and who wanted to change who she was," right? And you have to be consciously aware of all the things that are going on. And I think that's in response to the people that are driving without the traffic lights, right? It is interesting to me. I'm very old is how I will position it. Some of you might laugh about that, but I remember back in the day when we had to go somewhere and we didn't know where we were going, we pulled out our map, and I used to write down like the steps I had to remember, and I'd have like a little card with me. But a lot of times we just memorized what we needed to do, what the name of the street was, and then we're going to turn here, and then we're going to do this. Well, now that we have the GPSs, how crazy is that? Because we don't have to know where we're going. We don't have to do anything other than pay attention to someone telling us the direction we need to go in. And at times that's kind of scary. Like if you lose your phone or something happens in that way, if you've never paid attention to how you got there, how are you going to get back? So I get a little bit freaked out about AI and different things like that, because I know that the technology is amazing. We're moving ahead with great capabilities, but we're also taking away from an area in our brain that is helping us think clearly and move in, have critical thinking. So that's my teacher talking. And the last thing I'm going to say about reality before we move on is, there's a movie called Reality Bites, right? Sometimes we don't like what we see. And that's why we want to kind of go more into fantasy land and pick a different story about what's happening in our life, because sometimes what we're in is not fun. When I was teaching my sober school students, so students that were in recovery from drug and alcohol addiction. And a lot of times, one of the things they said was, they didn't like reality and they didn't like recovery very much because it was boring. They really liked the dopamine hit in the brain of all the chaos and things that were going on in their life. And what they found was, when things flatlined a little bit and life was normal and routine and they had their habits and their things that they did, it wasn't enough to stimulate the mind. So reality does bite in some situations, but it's also a wonderful place to be when you really are looking at the truth of your situation. Then you can get out of it. When you don't tell the GPS where you really are, it has to recalculate continually, right? When you don't agree with it and you're like, no, I'm going to go this way instead, it recalculates. But after a while, that's a lot of work, right? Like, sometimes we just need to accept what's going on and take the steps the way they're given to us. And the last thing I'm going to say is, sometimes we blow up our reality into something even bigger than it is. So Tony likes to say, when do you kill a monster? Okay, we have this fear, something out there is going to happen, and we have this monster that's going to attack us, let's say, right? Kill the monster when it's a baby, before it grows and becomes this gigantuan thing that's really hard to attack. See, when we're in reality, when we're not pushing it away, when we're addressing it head on, we're going to find out that the roar might be bigger than the bite, right? And so we need to really stay focused on the awareness of reality. And I see some of you are totally agreeing with that. So thank you. Thank you. All right. So as we move into reality, I want us to think, yesterday we dreamt about our desired destination, that place in the distance that we want. But now we have to focus on reality. And so the question I ask you is, where are you right now? If your life was on, your entire life was on this scale of 0 to 10, and yesterday's dreaming exercise, which I hope you were able to take advantage of. If not, the recording's out there. But if yesterday you were able to write the 10 in your life, where all these areas in your life would be perfect, then how do you feel? Like, what's the number you're at right now? This is a self-assessment. It's very unfiltered, meaning that you may feel like you're at a 0. But the reality is that may not be so true. Like, maybe if you had a one-on-one with me, I might be able to remind you of areas in your life that aren't so dire. Okay. And I see Vanessa's given me a number. The other ones, if you want to put them in the comments, great. If not, it's okay. I get it. And you could message me privately if you want to talk about where you feel you are now. The cool thing is later we're gonna do a little exercise where we measure each area of our life, and we'll start to see, like, where are our strengths? Where are the areas that we can bolster? We can take energy from the strengths of our life, and the areas where we're weak, we want to be aware of them. We want to focus some energy there, but we don't want to put all our energy there. See, a lot of times people get stuck in the story of their weakness, the things that are going wrong, and we only concentrate there, and it drags us down, where our superpower really comes from the things that energize us. And so we want to do more of the good stuff and less of the stuff that drags us down, and we'll start to see a balancing effect naturally. So that's what we want to look for. But there's actually 2 measurements in the reality that I want us to track. And the first is probably going to hit home as well, and that's time. Okay, time, I think, is our first real boundary that we all have to adhere to. There's people that have lots of money, and there's people that have all kinds of extra resources. Maybe they were born into a family with more things, but we all get the same amount of time. It is equal for us, the amount of time that we have. But how you spend your time is where things start to differ, right? And we all know that there are people in our life where it seems like they get millions of things done. They just charge ahead. It's like they have nothing else but their goal in front of them and nothing else matters. And then there are others who we just see them flailing. I hear the words all the time. I'm overwhelmed. I'm too busy. I can't do this. I can't do that. Our language just buys right into the time. I don't have time to do this or to do that. And the reality is the people who get things done have a different priority than the people who don't. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday. When we, especially as moms, we have this caring soul where we want to take care of our babies and do things for them. And when we're in that position, it's kind of like the oxygen masks on the airplane. If we're not taking care of ourselves, how are we going to take care of our children? So we have to do that same thing. We have to prioritize what's important, even though it doesn't feel like it makes sense. When we say, this is my time and this is what I'm doing in my time, and then we fit all the other things in, that gives us a position of power, right? We own our own power, what we're possible of. It gives us some control in our life. And it helps us to keep the end goal in mind and not get mired down in all the other stuff. Because it is very easy. We all have draws on our attention, and everything becomes a priority, right? So with everything being a priority, you still have to prioritize. You can't just be like a leaf in the wind blowing around whatever someone else's whim is for your life. That's why it's so important to have what we did yesterday in line, because when you have it written down and you know that's what you want to do, then even if you have the littlest amount of time available to you, the power, the feelings that you are going to get, the energy, yesterday we talked about being energized, you are going to get from taking that time for yourself and your dreams is going to amplify the rest of the time that you have when you have to spend it with other people on other priorities. And so my question for you today, now we know that time is our most valuable resource. We never get it back. The clock goes and we lose what we had before. That's why it's so important to direct our time and to work on the things that are important to us. But the question I want to ask you, and plant the seed in your mind right now, is how much time are you willing and able to devote to the dreams that you have? I see this all the time. Some of you heard about my 100-hour project because I was starting to get overwhelmed with so many things that I am trying to accomplish. And then I was feeling like I failed in some of the areas because I just wasn't gaining any traction. And then I had a heart-to-heart with myself and I said, Tina, how much time are you really giving to these extra things? Like, just because I bought a course doesn't mean that I'm going to instantly get that result. I have to do the work, right? And so I decided I would track my time, and I would see after 100 hours spent in each activity, what fruit I was getting from what I planted. And what ended up happening was there were definite areas in my life that I tracked over 100 hours. I decided I was going to do it for the first 90 days of the year. And there are definitely areas where I have tracked and put in more than 100 hours. And there are parts of my life where I have done less than an hour or two in those 90 days. So guess which ones are giving me more than the others? Yeah, the ones where I've spent the most time, my priorities. Even if in my head something else was more of a priority, the reality is where I spent my time is where things have been moving. Tony says, where focus goes, energy flows. And so where you are focusing your energy is where you're going to see results. So time is of the essence, as they always like to say. So what we're going to do is we are going to break down. Hopefully you have your notes next to you. If you don't, it's okay. So we're going to take all those 7 areas that we talked about yesterday in our life, and we're going to put a number to them. So we just did the one overall in your life, but now we're going to say, where are you in fitness? On a scale from 0 to 10, just write fitness down. And next to it, what's your number? What's your number in finance? Finance encompasses your entire financial picture. Are you paying your bills? Do you follow a budget? Is it a stress case, you're drowning in debt, or is it where you feel like there's a little bit extra, you've got money in savings? Those are all going to be factors in your finance. And then we've got family, okay? And what is your number for family? This is your inner circle, the people that you were probably have been a part of your life for many, many years, right? This is parents, siblings, children. You see them probably on a regular basis. That tends to be our family, a spouse, of course. And Vanessa is saying she needs a lifeline in finances. Sister, a lot of people are that way. The world has presented us with a lot of things that don't actually build the kind of financial freedom that we crave or need, right? And so there are things that can be done about that. I've had some great success in that area. Vanessa, we have so much to talk about. We're going to keep going. Field. Okay. Field is your business. If you have a business, or if you just have a passion, a thing that you give yourself to multiple hours of the day, that's where you really spend your time. Where are you in the level from 0 to 10? And I love it. Vanessa's saying inflation is a monster, a huge monster. And that is so true. And it might feel like we don't have any control over those big monsters in our life. Like, what do? We didn't get it as a baby, so now we're having this big, strong battle. Okay, we have to strengthen ourselves. The only thing we have control over is us. And not to let fear, like monsters feed on fear. So the more fear we have about a situation, the bigger and bigger the monster goes. It's kind of like the little gremlins where they gave them water and they expanded. So don't feed the monster. Focus on what you know to be true. We've had financial issues in our country for years and years and years. We always have these cycles, and cycles are like seasons. And while we have winter, we always will have spring that follows winter. So if you hang on, you will find that. And yes, she said yesterday, Tony said to let it go. And that is so true. All right, faith. Where are you in your faith journey? How connected do you feel to your creator, or what you believe in your world? And then what about friends and faith? When I started my coaching program, I was so in love with the fact that they added those last 3 there, because it wasn't an area like a lot of places just want to take you on a business journey or help you with your finances or your fitness, but they don't see you as the whole person. And if you're not connected with your faith, then there's a lot of holes in your life. And if you don't have friends, if you don't have a chosen group that you work with that helps you and encourages you and builds you up, then that is a lack, as well as fun. I know from my years and years and years as an entrepreneur, I can put my head down and I can get so focused on my business that I lose sight of having fun. And literally, my husband and I will put down, what are we doing for fun this week, every week when we do our calendar, because we recognize that if we don't schedule it, we won't do that. Okay. Yes. And Vanessa is sharing about feeling alone at times. And that's so true. We are in the loneliest period of our world, where people are they need lifelines. They need people. And unfortunately, as much as I like technology and things like our Zooms, it doesn't replace the 3D friend in front of you, hugs, just having someone look right in your eyes, right? So we have to accommodate for that. We have to find ways that we are going to not buy in on the story of aloneness. And we have to reach out, and we have to find people, as simple as it is, like I will look at people's eyes, and even just a short encounter in a grocery store, when I'm at the cashier there, I make a point of saying something kind, and I look in their eyes when I say thank you. And there's that connection that we need as people. And so don't give that up. Don't rush to get out or have your head in the phone or talking to somebody else. And, you're doing your thing, but you're not participating in life that's right there in front of you. That's a reality, is that we are around people. It's what you do with the people around you that will change some of that perspective going on. Vanessa says when her DoorDash comes, she gives people very kind words. That's lovely. All right, I found this quote. It's from somebody I'd never heard of before, and it looks like his name kind of didn't show up on the screen there. I think it was Dylan De Silva. And he had this thing about the balanced wheel. So some of you know that in my work, we'll take those 7 F's and we'll plot them on a circle graph, and it makes kind of a wheel. And I found this, and I thought this is just a good statement. A balanced wheel gives you a smooth ride. We all know that. Most of us have tires on our vehicles that are perfectly round, and unless we have a flat, will move us down the road, right? That balanced wheel is a metaphor for a balanced life. And when we have a balanced life, we get all the pleasures that life has to offer. But when we have an unbalanced wheel, there's not enough air in it like all the others, right? Then we have that rough ride. And while we can get by with, semi-flat, the more the air gets drawn out of it, the harder and harder it is to move forward, right? So that unbalanced life, it brings in grief. It brings in the harder times, and we don't want that. We want to work for the balance in our wheel as much as possible. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions before we end today. And the first is, how much time do you have? What are you truly committed to giving to your goals? And, I have this 24-hour clock there. We all get 24 hours, right? I'm going to show you just a quick breakdown of what usual might look like. So most people sleep around 8 hours. I know that my body doesn't need quite 8, so I get a little bit less in that area. But most people, the body needs about 8 hours. Most of us have to do some form of exercise and eating. So even if we just barely grab a bite each day, we're still looking at 1 to 2 hours of exercise and meals. And then those of us with jobs or things that we do each day, that can be 8 to 10 hours a day. That focus, that passion, that field, right? Now, on the 24-hour scale, that still leaves us somewhere in that realm of 4 to 7 hours. And if you haven't ever done a little time diagram like this, I would recommend it, just so you know what time you have available to you to do what you need to do. Now, I know when I had kids, it was taking them to their activities and helping them with their schoolwork. And of course, it's bigger with the meals. And then you have interactions with family, and you've got all this other stuff. So you might actually, in certain periods of your life, really, really have a very limited amount of time to devote to anything. But I'm asking you to say what you will do, what you can do, what you know is possible, regardless of outside influences. What gift are you going to give yourself? Like Tony likes to call it your hour of power. Can you give yourself an hour in the morning that's just yours? That's going to be when you work on the things that you know you're meant to do. And that can be exercise. That can be reading. That can be making that phone call that you know you need to make. But the goal is, what we don't want to do is say we have 5 hours a day we're going to devote to what we want to do. And then we know that's unrealistic reality, right? And so we immediately start not able to meet the things on our list because we don't have the time. Like, we truly don't have the time. And yet we've built ourselves up. We've set a stage that we can't be successful on. So if it's 15 minutes, if it's 5 minutes, just be honest. Now, with that honesty comes the realization that you have to, if you only have 5 minutes versus 5 hours, it's going to take you a lot longer to get your goal. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you accept it and set your goal timeline appropriately. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But I wanted you to pick your time now, to decide what your timing is going to look like. The blueprint for success, and I'm sorry that smushed a little bit. We already talked about our dream and our goal, okay? So the blueprint for success is we look at what we've already been successful with. And I'll just have a few more minutes to finish this up, and then we'll be ready for tomorrow. But I want you to think of a time you were successful in your past. We all have 2 or 3 times where we know we met an accomplishment that we worked for, and we feel really good about it. That's that priming I was talking about yesterday, when you can pull out good things. And a good thing, like for instance, one of the memories I get all the time that was success or moments I'm proud of were when I held my babies for the first time. I didn't have to work hard other than pushing the baby out of me. Just that love, that acceptance that my body was designed to do that. That was a success, okay? But you pick your successes. What are some examples? And that prayer and meditation isn't supposed to be there, but it's a perfect thing for you to do to remember the where you were and how you can bring that in. And then we have, what I want you to do is next to the successes, to put how much time you actually took to make that a success. So was it a priority for you when you were in that season of your life? How much time did you devote to it? And what circumstances were going on in your life at that point, right? So I know I got my master's degree in education when I was in one of the busiest time periods of my life. All of my kids were older, so they had thousands of activities that they were going to. And I had a job. I didn't know how I was going to do it. But you know how I did it? I did it. I said, one night a week, Mom has this class, and she's going to stay up late, and she's going to write papers when you guys are doing your homework. We're going to get this done. And I did it. And I know that I didn't have much time, but I prioritized it. I let my kids see how important it was for me to continue and get a better degree. And the circumstances was, it was pure chaos. So this blueprint for success reminds me that in my life, even though I have a lot of things going on, I can do a lot with a lot of things going on, because I have pure examples of when my success happened in times of a lot of things. Now, that may not be your blueprint. The cool thing is we all have our individual blueprints. Yours may be you had to totally block everything out. You had to focus. But what I want you to do is to be thinking of, what's the pattern for success in my world, the way I've always done it. And then you ask yourself, what steps did I take to achieve that goal? And I want you to write it down. What exactly did you do? How did you recover from a health incident? How did you support yourself when there wasn't money before? How did you do what you know you're capable of doing already? And when challenges came up, what was your weapon? How did you solve it? And then the last one is, how did you decide when it was a success? Because you look back on it and you said this was a success. There was a line in the sand where you checked the box and you said, yes, I did this thing. And sometimes I've seen perfectionists, I've seen high achievers, where we keep making the success a thing in the future, kind of like our destination, right? And we're never actually going to get there. So we never give ourselves the reward of celebrating that we did it. And that's why it's so important to break these milestones events up, so that we can have that moment where we're like, yes, success. Our body needs to know that we're on the right track. And we do that by telling it, you're doing a good job. Every morning you could wake up and be like, I'm that much closer to my goal. I am moving myself ahead. I'm getting in state to do the thing that I'm meant to do. I hope this is tracking well for you guys. Go ahead and put in the comments. Let me know how this is sitting, if this information seems to be in line with what you can do to make that dream more of a reality, but because you're paying attention to how your life really is. And I do want to recommend one resource before we end, and that is the life coaching that I do. The 7 F's has a framework where they'll ask you a very quick questionnaire, an assessment in each of those 7 areas, and it will prepare that wheel for you. And I would really recommend you go do it. It is free. And you can see right here my website, which of course is you can't see it very well, but it's myoola.com. Oola Life. So Oola is OOLA life.com. And then do the /coach Tina, all one word. I know you can't see it on the slide, so I don't know why. Maybe if I popped out the picture. And that was just for a second. It didn't work. Okay. I'm going to put it in the feed, the comments for the group, so that you will have access to the wheel. It will send me, if you do it with my link, it will send me a kind of a where your areas, where your strengths are, right? We talked about how important it is to know your strengths and areas where you need to work. It does not send me a picture of the wheel itself. So I would recommend you take a screenshot of that. I would love, 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 love it if you were to share your screenshot in the Empowering Champions group. If that would work for you, great. If you do not want to do that, then just message it to me so that I have it. I can start you on a little program that my software has where we can track that over time that you were together. And that will help me to know the areas where I can really support in the group, the strengths and the weaknesses of our members. All right. I'm super excited, you guys, that we are doing this together. Tomorrow, we will be covering the secret of why we shouldn't wait until tomorrow. It's kind of funny that I have to say Day 3 is about, which is tomorrow, is about not waiting until tomorrow. But I promise you, tomorrow we're going to be talking about procrastination. And it is going to be very valuable information that you will not want to miss. I'm so looking forward to us having that time together. I'm sorry about going a little bit over. I guess I should have said class was 35 minutes. Hope you guys have a really great day. And I'll put that link in the comments right away. Take care.